So in this video, I'm going to show you my technique for putting handle scales on a knife. I used to mess this up every once in a while. Stuff would be misaligned and it wouldn't quite work out. Ever since I started to use this technique I'm about to show you, I haven't had an issue since. Stay watching. We'll walk through the whole process and maybe it'll save you some time and frustration. Step one is just to trace the profile of the handle onto the material. Make sure you leave a good amount of room in front of this front pin, because sometimes if you get that too close to the end, you will split your material when putting the pin through. So leave lots, the extra in front here, and then I like to mark just like this, just so I know where those pinholes are. That's one. I'll do the same thing for the other side. Next, we're going to cut these out on the jigsaw. Make sure you cut on the outside of the line. You want plenty of wiggle room. You can grind it away later. Here's about how they should look after being cut out. You don't need to use a jigsaw. I like it because it can make tighter turns. You can use a bandsaw, it's just fine. Here's a real secret sauce. You want to keep these scales steady while you're drilling through. And no matter how you try to do it, if they're not attached to the knife, things just seem to get misaligned. If I were to drill, mark through the tang and then drill that mark, it would be misaligned somehow. If I were to, any other number of techniques, you always get misalignment. I found that the only way to do it is to actually physically drill through the tang. That way, you know for a fact, if you drill through the tang and there is wood on all sides, that you will have a successful handle. And so the way I affix it to it is just with some nice tape, Gorilla Tape or T-Rex tape. And now this isn't wiggling around. I can drill right through the tang and it will come out the other side where it's supposed to. So I've got a 1/4 inch lanyard loop going through the back and 3/16 inch in the front. What you can do also is just take your exact same drill bit and put it in there. And that's gonna make sure nothing misaligns then. There, that's gonna hold that steady. Now when I go to drill the 3/16, I know it's not gonna shift on me because I already have essentially a pin holding it steady. So when we put all this together, this is going to be perfectly lined up. I think so often people try to match up the profile here. They're trying to make this line up with this, line up with that, and that's thinking the wrong way. It doesn't matter the profile. All that matters is that the holes line up. And the holes will line up if you drill through the tang straight through here. Again, as long as you have wood surrounding this on all sides, that will match up every time when these both eventually go on here. Now, let me show you how I get this region here even before we start to affix the handle. I'll just take an old 3/16 inch drill bit and go through the front 2 holes. Take an old 1/4 inch drill bit and go through the back 2 holes. Now these are lined up just like they need to be, and I can round out the front here. When you want to check the fit, just pop one side off and line your knife up there. And it's going to show you how that's going to kind of look when it's all attached. So if I just kind of put these through the tang, now I can see how it's going to look. And for me, I just like this to be down more. So I'm just going to mark, I'd rather see this kind of go like this here. So now I know I can shave off all this. And maybe a little more rounding there. And that's going to be about what I'm looking for. So it's easy to check your work as you go on this. As you saw, you can also kind of soften and bevel the edges here. And then sometimes these drill bits kind of give you a nice little handle to work with. Sometimes you'll need to open these up a little bit just so you can get your pin through. And so you can just kind of lightly rock them around, kind of chamfer them there. Get yourself a little more room. When I'm doing a lanyard hole in the back and I've got a 1/4 inch piece of brass going through there, I'm not afraid to just drill through with a, 17/64. I'll just put that through there because that gives me the room I need, and it's a lot easier than trying to hammer a perfect fit through there, which again can sometimes chip out the wood on the other side. Where it comes out, you can sometimes get a split there. So go ahead and just drill a little bit wider, it'll be fine. So I really like to use JB Weld for putting the handle on. I like that it has steel filings kind of blended all through it, so it feels like I'm just kind of continuing the tang. It does a great job of filling gaps and just kind of being this neutral color that blends in really well with the handle or the tang if there do happen to be any gaps. It's extremely strong. I've had to remove some handles before of mine, and you pretty much got to cut them into sections and then chisel them off bit by bit and then drill out the pins. So not easy to get off, and I've never had one loosen. So that's what I like to use. And then before you get your pins through, just make sure they're beveled, and that way they're going to go through easy. This is 3/16 inch stock. That is just from a hardware store, and this is a 1/4 inch tube, that probably from Etsy. So coat one side of the tang, make sure your beveled edge is on the outside. You don't want to reverse this, that wouldn't be nice. And just gonna kind of lightly feel for the holes here and start it going through manually just by kind of twisting. I don't want to hammer or anything. I don't want to cause any undue stress to the wood. There we go. And now that it's poked through just a little bit on the other side, I can cover it with the epoxy. So I've got that perfectly through on both sides. Just kind of press it through. You can tap it with a hammer if you need to, which I often do. And now I'm just gonna compress it all together with these clamps. Let it kind of flow out the top and the sides. Let it sit up just for a second. And I'm still gonna work this even when it's wet. It doesn't need to sit overnight. I can work it when it's wet, get it close, get it just about finished actually, and then clamp it overnight and shave off any excess in the morning with like an X-Acto knife or something like that. So as you just saw, once it's on, you just grind until you start to see sparks. That's when you know you're contacting the tang, and you'll be left with a perfect fit all the way around like this. And you know, this is a distal taper, so it's thinner here, thicker up here, but as long as it's a flat plane and a flat plane, it'll all be fine with no gaps. And you can see as I squeeze this, it'll still squinch out there. This is still actively setting up, but again, that's fine. I'm gonna get the handle pretty close to finished, just like this, and then clamp it overnight. This way, you don't have to wait as long before you work on it again. First, I go hard and put in a nice initial bevel into this handle to start to shape it correctly. As you can see, I cut in those initial bevels pretty hard. And I'm gonna reduce this. You know, people always talk about a beefy handle, I like a beefy handle. They really don't. Nobody likes a beefy handle once they hold a nicely shaped handle. Too beefy, too wide, and this thing does not line up well in your hand. In fact, you get worse grip. Just try it. Try grabbing onto something that is larger with your hand, and then try gripping something that's smaller. Picture when you're shooting a Glock versus a 1911. You get a better grip on the 1911 because it's a thinner, wider grip. That's why people love it so much. You get something wider like the Glock or even the Walther, which I do enjoy. It's so wide, it doesn't really align well, and you can't really grip in with those muscles. Most of your grip is coming from your pinky and your ring finger, and they don't want a big fat thing to grab around. They want something that is thinner and wider. Something like this, you're gonna get a better grip on than something that is rounder. So the whole idea of the beefy handle, it really does not work. You don't get a good grip on it. It's not comfortable long-term. You don't need a beefy handle or a small handle. You need one that is shaped correctly, and that's what we're doing here. All right, now I'm just gonna eyeball it and make sure nothing's crazy out of whack. If it looks about even, then you're good to keep going because we're gonna move to finer and finer tools. Give it a feel. Does it feel way too fat? No, it feels like it's gonna be good. I'm gonna have to remove some material here because again, you want to get that pinky closer to being closed. That's where a lot of grip comes from. So I want to enable the body to do its best gripping work on this. Next then, I'm going to move to the angle grinder. So that's going nicely. Now look, it's just not overly thick and it's a bit of an oval, and your taper is more extreme here than it is here. So this looks roughly like a diamond. If I were to exaggerate this big time, it's like half of a diamond, where your angle is steeper up top and then more shallow below, because when you grip your hands together, look at that, it's wider up top and narrow down below, roughly like the half of a diamond. That's how you want your knife to be. It makes a very comfortable grip. So we've got it here. Let's get it over here. Okay, you can see our curves are about even on both sides, but now I'm gonna start doing is to really even this up, and I'll do that just with some aggressive sandpaper. And I'm just gonna take it and have it angled here, back and forth, and then equal angle on the other side, back and forth, and then I'll go across the middle. And by doing that repeatedly, we're just going to even up everything true to the tang. Okay, this is actually the next day, and this has now been sanded up to 600 grit. It's nice and even, it's nice and comfortable in the hand. And now we're gonna work on staining and finishing this wood so that curly maple really pops. So first thing you do is you wet the wood a little bit here, and that's gonna raise up the grain. And when the grain raises up, then you're going to bring it back down with some steel wool. I'm just not gonna wait for this to dry off naturally. I'm gonna speed it up with a heat gun. So now what I've been doing lately is I'm using a dye rather than a stain. So I think it's alcohol based. And I do that because apparently that goes a little bit deeper into the fibers and penetrates nice and deep. And then also it works well with a true oil. If you want to finish it with true oil, this will not kind of negatively interact with that. So that's what I've been doing lately. So notice how I'm just rubbing that dye in there. I'm gonna go again. I like it nice and dark, and this maple won't start to pop until I give it that shellac. So I'll bring it back when I put that on. Now this isn't real traditional, but I'm gonna spray it with this Zinsser Bullseye shellac. This is a non-waxed shellac. It doesn't have any wax in it, and what that's gonna do is allow the true oil then to set up on top of this nicely. If you have a waxed shellac and you put true oil over it, it can sometimes not set up right or become gummy. And so this shellac is going to give it a nice coat, protect the wood, and then I'll be ready to do a true oil coat over this. This is just one way to do it. It's the way I'm doing it more recently. It's a spray, not super traditional, but I liked how it looked last time, so we're gonna do it again this time. All right, well, after that shellac has been on and dried and cured, this is how it looks. I buffed it pretty heavy just with a blue shop towel. No abrasive on it, you just buff pretty heavy with a blue shop towel, and that's gonna bring out some sheen. And now it's ready for me to put a little coat of true oil on top of it. So for true oil, less is more. This makes it really glossy, so you gotta be careful, because I don't like mine too glossy. I just have some of my thumb there, and I am just going to lightly coat the piece here. And that's it. I'm even gonna get some of that extra off, and I'll do the other side with the extra there. This leaves a nice, shiny and durable coat. And the more layers you do, the shinier it is. And I don't like it too shiny, too gaudy. So this whole bit that I've done is just from that one shake onto my thumb. Okay, and here's our final product for the handle. We've got the true oil that sealed it, and it's made this nice kind of sheen, this nice coating here. That's gonna protect the die and the handle a little bit. You can see our full distal taper, so we're thinner through here And then of course we get thick out through the middle and then thin towards the end. But you can see the handles have affixed to that perfectly. There's, you can't really feel this with your thumb. These are nice and smooth, and that's because that technique we used for it. So there's the technique I use. If you do that, drill through the tang into the wood of the handle, you're gonna get it right every time, and you're gonna save yourself a bunch of time, effort, and money. Thanks for watching. I'd love for you to subscribe. You can also visit my website, marsfireforge.com. And if you'd like, you can check out a custom knife like this one that I can forge for you. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.